And we are live. Everybody, welcome back. Happy Wednesday. You know what that means. Another Point3 Podcast Wednesday live stream coming at you. We are your favorite trio of hosts. Myself, Hero Scroll, to my right, Lou, and down below, Spider Brando. Just Spider Brando for today. We don't have
back
any.
to the OGness.
There we go. There we go. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us, whether you are watching live or watching this later on. Hopefully we can bring some joy to your day by talking a lot of different things. Today, having a very big focus on Daredevil, specifically the Kingpin with an MCU redo coming up as well as some DCU updates. We did get some new news. That's why you come here, because we give you the actual new stuff, not the fake new quote unquote stuff that came out actually in 2024. That we covered
way last year.
Yeah.
The reports be reporting just to be reporting.
Soft.
And they always will. Right? But everybody, some quick housekeeping or some exciting announcements, better said. That's how we're going to phrase it. Some exciting announcements for the Point3 Podcast. We know that we haven't done this in a while, and a lot of people asked us about it when we kind of stopped, and we just thought about doing it again. We thought about it a while ago. It kind of fell to the wayside. But we will be uploading once again on Spotify, Google. What's Google's?
Just like Google Podcasts.
Oh,
I think it doesn't exist.
That's garbage. It's garbage.
Yeah.
Hit them with the best ones.
Spotify,
Okay.
Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, there you go.
Preferably.
Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Yeah, we're gonna be
You
giving
can, you can still Google us though.
Yeah, do it.
Scroll for a minute, but you'll find us.
Yeah,
Create
you
that
will.
SEO.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll be uploading back up there as well, just the audio only versions of the podcast, which is going to be coming live every Wednesday. So to that point, we're going to be renaming the Wednesday live stream just straight up to the podcast. It will be the podcast. That is what you will get on Spotify. So if you want to hear us while you're driving, while you're working out, while you're doing whatever, but can't put us on YouTube, there you go. We've heard your cries, and we hope that you enjoy it. So next week will be the official start of that. So look forward to that. Those will kind of hopefully be up the following day after the live show itself. So exciting times, as well as a new season for us. So that'll kind of mark the break in between for us. So yeah. And anyways, guys, let's get started with tonight's show, if I can speak for 2 seconds. That's how excited I am. I'm excited. You know why? Because we're about to kick it off with the 3 most important things that all of us do every week. If you're new here, that is keep watching, keep reading, and keep nerding out. Spider Bizzle, hit him with the keep watching.
We stay watching Invincible. And once again, tomorrow night, Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be hosting a Invincible Season 3, Episode 6 watch party in our Discord. So if you're not in the Discord, like we say every week as well, join it and yap away with us for behind-the-scenes chats. And a lot of the time we input Discord user comments into the episodes and just stuff that we talk about in there and ask questions in there to these episodes. So, but nonetheless, I will be hosting the Invincible watch party, and I'm excited for it because the last episode was pretty damn good. I've been a big fan of season 3 so far. It's got the action, animation's good. I don't care what anybody says. It's definitely better than season 2 animation. I will say that. And they didn't. Episode 5 was a good episode. It wasn't as hyped as didn't leave off on as much hype that episode 4 left off with. And I'm hoping they go back to. I don't want to spoil, obviously, so I'm kind of treading the waters. But I'm hoping they go back to where they left off in episode 4 in this episode 6. So, other than that, I think season 3 has been great. I'm happy we get the episodes weekly, and no mid-season break has been doing it wonders, I think. And after tomorrow's episode, we just got, I think, 2 more after that. Crazy to think about. The season just kind of like came and went, sucked. I mean, not like sucked in a bad way, but like sucked that it's not as on like the level that it kind of used to be with season 1. Everyone chatting about it. Season 2, chatting the good and the bad about it. But I don't know. It's had a lot of competition with other projects surrounding it too. So
that's interesting though, because I do think, at least from a social media perspective, I have seen a lot more people talk about this season than I did last season. And I know, we've talked about it at length why that mid-season break was terrible.
I heard it so bad.
Yeah, but no, I've seen a lot more people on it. At least on my side of the TikTok, I've seen people kind of hype it up and talk about it a lot. So I think it gained a lot of people back, and hopefully whatever the rest of the season offers and season 4 and beyond just keeps gaining those people back as well. And I think it will, and creating new fans of the series as well.
If you fell off in season 2, because no spoilers, but because you were missing something, I promise you it probably showed up in the last 2 to 3 episodes.
Yeah, I would agree with that very much. Last episode was so good. I had someone comment on one of our posts about how the episode was cheeks, and obviously we respect everyone's opinions here, and there will be obviously disagreements on stuff people like and people don't like, but I had that comment before I watched the episode, and I watched the episode and I was like, yo, this is not cheeks whatsoever.
I don't see it.
But
no.
I got what the commenter was coming from. I ended up commenting back and had a little discussion on it, and did bring up some good points for perspective purposes, but I thought it was still a great episode. There's one scene I really want to talk about. It had a lot of Superman vibes in it, which was like really cool to like kind of see the inspiration that Invincible has from that character.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. Invincible. Make sure you're in the Discord, because again, we will be hosting some more, specifically Spider Brando, some more watch parties. So thank you for covering that wonderful Keep Watching. Lou, keep reading. What have we done?
We've done some things, but I think Spider Brando, I think you were pretty excited about this one now.
I am. We got, before we do keep reading, I have one more thing that I would keep watching. We got Daredevil Born Again next week, watch party, and we will be doing weekly Daredevil Born Again watch parties as long as every week season 1 comes out, or season 1, yeah, technically season 1. So 8:30 p.m. Yeah, 8:30 p.m. on Tuesdays. Episode 1 and 2 this upcoming Tuesday, March 4th. And after that, we'll go from there on timing, but probably around 8:30 weekly. So join our Discord once again if you're not in there for weekly watch parties and chats.
Beautifully said. But I think we're gonna lump in Keep Nerding and Keep Reading into one thing here, because I think we're all kind of nerding out about Daredevil as we are a week away from the premiere of episode 1 and 2. But in preparation for that, we here at the Point3 Podcast, of course, want to go through and know all that we can about these comic runs that inspire a lot of these DCU shows that are coming out. So keep reading. We're going to talk a little bit about Frank Miller's Daredevil Born Again run. So, Hero, what were some general thoughts? How'd you feel about it? What are you thinking on it?
I mean, fantastic run. If you've never read Frank Miller Daredevil, both his first run and then him coming back on the Born Again title, it's the main Daredevil title, but the story. amazing stuff. I will say that if you are a comic book fan, that's probably like I would never assign homework, in comic books together, but that's like comic book homework. That's the kind of stuff that if you're gonna do, if we're high school and this is, we're gonna make you read Romeo and Juliet. No, we'd be making people read Frank Miller's Daredevil run.
Oh man, I would have loved that. I would have loved that.
I would have loved it so much. Yeah, it's so good, from the storytelling to revitalizing the character in many ways for a lot of different people as well, taking a different tone as well, advancing Matt Murdock's character as well, the rest of the supporting cast for Daredevil too. It's fantastic. I can't recommend it enough.
No, and I think in reading those issues, it really, you get a true feel of what it means to kind of see Frank Miller redefining Daredevil, going through and showing you how Kingpin dismantles his entire life. And I mean his entire life. I couldn't imagine that. I did pause for a second and I was like, I couldn't imagine not having a house, having no money, having no place to go, knowing that anywhere I go, my number one adversary literally probably has eyes on me, and I'm down so bad that I'm gonna be on a train and some dude's getting whooped, and I'm like, man, it's not me anymore. And then I snap and I'm like, psych boy, I'm going over the edge, dead. Like, the way that the story was told from beginning to end, from both Kingpin and Daredevil's perspective. Daredevil, you just go through this roller coaster of emotion. And just like, how, bro, you're down bad. Like, that's the definition of down bad.
Yeah.
And
rock
Kingpin, rock bottom. And then Kingpin feels in the story like, bro, he's the boss. Like, he runs the streets. The world goes through Kingpin as you're reading this. And you're like, this guy, is he the GOAT?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the way that he does it so subtly too, that Matt can't even realize that it's him until, and spoilers obviously for this story, but this story is very old already. So,
1980s, we're not.
Yeah. So if you don't want to hear it, go read it, come back. But once he blows up his house, that's when Matt is like, oh, you did that. And he even says, mentally to himself, you shouldn't have signed this. I would have never thought it was you. And I just love that, because again, it just goes to show you how smart Kingpin is.
Yeah.
That if he really didn't show his hand and get too cocky with it, which he even says multiple times throughout the story, he probably would have won completely. There are definitely moments throughout this that, like, I love the portrayal of Kingpin and him showing his flaws, and we'll talk about the Daredevil thing a little bit. I think they did a decent job of kind of showing the obsession that the characters have with each other. But like, after Matt Murdock tried to show up and try to beat Kingpin down with a pipe, Kingpin's like, nah, dog, see red. And then the taxi goes into the river. Yeah.
And then there's no body. It's almost like he's like, I want you to live, because like, it's almost that Batman Joker dynamic of like, I can't really exist without you. And vice versa. It's like, I can't really exist without you. Like, you are my purpose for why I'm doing what I'm doing at this moment. But I think it's super cool. By the end of this, you literally have two characters at the end of Born Again, where you're like, Kingpin is the Lord of Crime, not the king of the streets, the Lord of Crime.
Yeah.
And then you have Daredevil, who is the man without fear. No bullets, no bazookas, no guns, you can be anywhere at any time. Like, at the end of this, you just have two S-tier characters that just felt amazingly good throughout this entire story.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And he, Kingpin going with his obsession to the point where people are now actively questioning him. Obviously, it still provides bad consequences for them, which I still really, really like to see, that he never loses that edge and that hold that he does have over just everybody. It's a complete hold where they don't really question. And those that do it, it always proves to be bad, even for reporter Ben Ulrich, where it's like he has such a nice involvement in the first Frank Miller run with Daredevil, with Matt, and figuring out and piecing all that together, and then trying to help him in this one to get out of this hole that he's in. But he knows that he is literally being watched at all times. He is at work being called to listen to another man, lose his life. Literally at work again, a simple janitor being like, "Hey, buddy, I'm glad you're not doing that." Just the mental headspace that he's in. And I love how they do it in the book, where they just show him progressively getting redder to the point where it's like he's so scared he doesn't know what to do for a little bit.
Telling the story through, I think Frank Miller does this very well, of kind of giving you kind of a third person perspective on the main character, so much so to that point on the flip side of it where you kind of have the Kingpin going after Ulrich and you see his life and how he's affected, and like you get to that feel of like, if I associate with Matt Murdock or Daredevil, my life is at risk. I'm risking my life by literally knowing your name, right? But I did love where he gave Daredevil his flowers, and he's looking after Daredevil comes back after being down bad, and he's like, he calls him Matt, and he's like, I shouldn't call him Matt. Give the man his due. He's wearing the tights. He's Daredevil, the man without fear. And then it's like, damn, Frank Miller. He's like, bam, Daredevil's back, and he tells that through Ben Ulrich's eyes. I thought that was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah. No, and then adding to that, just Daredevil, the journey that he goes through, kind of like we've already alluded to, from the lowest of lows now really to like the highest point that he gets to in the run towards the end, where he kind of finds out a little bit more about his own origin, finding out about himself, what he's capable of doing. I love that in his descent to madness, he still holds on to Foggy in a way, which probably my favorite scene was where he's talking on the phone, and you think he's talking to Foggy, and then he just leaves the phone hanging, and he never called anybody. Just talking to himself this whole time. It's great stuff, the way that they showed his mental headspace, to where his heightened senses only make it worse for him. Like his descent is just worse because of his powers. Like he's able to smell this terrible hotel that he's in. He's able to hear every walk, and he thinks like, this is it for me.
Yep.
They're after me.
Yeah.
And then to see him on the flip side of that, when he comes out and goes toe to toe with Nuke, who is just a super soldier, and he holds his own, and he's so clear in his senses, knowing exactly what to do, even if he is outclassed, just goes to show you how Daredevil as a hero is.
Oh, I mean, if you were like, I don't know if I really like Daredevil. If you read Frank Miller's Man Without Fear and the Born Again series, you will probably walk away with this of like, this guy has to be one of my favorite Marvel characters. Like the relatability for everything that he's going through, his humanity, like he feels super, but at the same time, like he's a superhero, but he feels like he feels like a man that just, bro, every time I think about it, it just really is surprising that you can feel for Matt in this way, and then feel for him as Daredevil, but then also feel for Kingpin, and then feel for Foggy and Karen, like everyone that kind of shows up that has somewhat of a decent role in the story. Like your heart is kind of hurting for them in so many ways. It's Nate, to that point. I mean, it was really good, but I do want to call out one thing to that point. Again, it's been out since the 80s. When the Avengers essentially show up after the nuke fight, typically you're like, the Avengers showed up, like the real team showed up. I'm like, you guys showed up and Daredevil feels like an ace next to you guys. He feels like an ace next to Iron Man. He feels like an ace with Thor's there. He feels like an ace with Cap. That, to me, was surprising, although I knew it happens. Reading it, getting to that point and going on that journey, he felt S tier.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just cool because it's like, clearly he still thinks about it. Where he's like, should I stand down? And I love that. I love that he only thinks about it till he tells himself, till he's able to reason that he's like, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Like this isn't the place for that. But in reality, could he probably go toe to toe with Iron Man? Probably. Could he go with Thor? Probably not. But we just saw him take on a super soldier. Obviously, Cap is very different, but who's to say, you know? And I think that them making Cap sympathetic to Nuke too was a good point in there as well. Yeah, just he feels so good throughout all of it. The panel where he's standing out of the burning, and it's just him in red with the bully club. It's so good. It's so good. The art is fantastic throughout all of it. Like the way they convey emotion, just the close up on, you know, people's faces. It's all so good. My one big concern, or not concern, maybe reserve towards between this and the MCU is I don't see how they do this within the MCU. Right, because Netflix Daredevil has already taken certain elements from both runs and have adapted it in their own ways pretty well, I will add. But I don't see how this version of Born Again makes it into the MCU version of Born Again. I think they share it by name.
I have to agree with that in a lot of ways because I think it's widely known that there's a lot of inspiration from Frank Miller's Born Again that was put into season 3. But I think that was more so of like Fisk trying to figure out, like, you know, he has his suspicions about Matt being Daredevil. And then ultimately by the end of it, he kind of confirms his identity when he's looking at that footage from the surveillance piece and all that. But like, in the end, they strike a deal to keep his identity secret. And ultimately, you know, it's kind of pulling on Fisk's want to really protect Vanessa as well. But I just think the core elements, as I read this and kind of we know what happens through season 1 through 3 through Netflix Daredevil, I think it was like quarter baked, not even half baked in it, in terms of Kingpin wants to destroy Matt's life, sure, but in this run, in Frank Miller's run, it goes way deeper. You have Matt who's kind of leaning on his faith a little bit. Sure, you can draw parallels. Kingpin having his influence over kind of, you know, the law enforcement police and kind of having his toe in everything. Got it. You do have your bullseye aspects of things that are in here. And then ultimately, you know, Kingpin and Daredevil have that fight. But again, the big thing that I think is missing, to where when we'll talk about this in a little bit or maybe now, I think it's good that Born Again would have 2 seasons so that they could build to all of these things. Because I think having the expectation of like, oh, Born Again is going to kind of be, like you were saying, kind of, you know, and have that likeness beyond just kind of name. There are a lot of core elements that I think are unknowns for us.
Yeah.
Like what foundation are we getting in the show that we can kind of really draw parallels from the story? Because the story really takes us from an A to a B, where Born Again might be like a D to a C. We just don't know in that sense. So we'll talk a little bit more about some other runs and some stuff that are more current, you know, through Chip Zdarsky and kind of maybe Devil's Reign and some other things that we could do that. Now, Nate, I think you said that. But I think that there is a little bit of confusion. That this is why you come to the Point3 podcast and we talk on Discord. You know, Born Again is going to be kind of that name piece. So,
yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, for our keep reading, keep nerding out, definitely Daredevil Born Again. And one more time for those that didn't hear it, yes, there will be a Discord watch party next week. As we were live, it was realized that the episode apparently drops at 9 p.m. So we'll move the Discord watch party. So stay tuned to our socials. Stay tuned here. Definitely stay tuned so that way you know exactly what time to be there with us. But let's move on to our next segment. Moving on to big DC studio news. Spider Brando, hit us with this next piece.
So James Gunn and DC had a little presentation the other day and announced / reconfirmed some stuff that we knew, like we mentioned earlier. But first and foremost, the 3 most exciting things that I think got announced or confirmed yesterday was the DC Studios developing 3 new animated shows with a STARFIRE show, a show called Superpowers, and My Adventures with Green Lantern, starring Jessica Cruz as Green Lantern. And fun fact, impromptu planned, I actually have a Jessica Cruz Green Lantern pop that my cousin got me for Christmas a couple years ago. So I'm excited to give the show a chance. Haven't been watching My Adventures with Superman too much since I started it, but I think it's cool that they keep on developing the animated shows. But I'll circle back to that. We also have news from Gunn himself that a new Superman trailer is to be released soon. Some say April. Who knows when, but it's in development. And on top of Superman, crypto short films are in development. So the little white dog from the Superman movie, same one, will be getting some features. You also confirmed that we've all been saying for months and months and months that the Matt Reeves' Batman universe will not be in the DCU. I had so breaking news that he had to...
No way.
Stop it.
No.
You're lying.
I'm not.
How could they?
How could they? Even though this was announced like weeks ago.
They announced this as soon as he mentioned the DCU. When they mentioned Chapter 1, he was like, yeah, no, this isn't. No, they're not going to cross.
Well, I meant like weeks ago. It was like the buff too when the whole why can't I think of the director's name at the moment?
Reeves,
Machete?
Yeah, when Reeves was at the Oscars. Or no, Golden Globes.
No,
whatever film award show he was at recently. He kept on getting asked about it around that time. But it's officially not merging with the DCU. Something else that was also announced like last year by Gunn himself is that a Teen Titans live action film is in development with the script by the Supergirl writer Anna, I forgot the last name. Anna D. Niao. I know I might have been so off, but
we're not on our computers. You can't look it up.
Yes.
Yeah. She'll be writing it as well. And I just found it funny that everyone acted like it was such breaking news, but I legit did a post about that a year ago when it was actually like breaking news. It was cool to see the news cycle through. We also got news that Batman Brave and the Bold script is still being written and in development, and the first person that will see said script will be Andy Muschietti. And that we'll see if he goes on to direct the movie, apparently. So that is very interesting. Gunn also said that his next project that he will be working on is not the sequel to Superman. He didn't say what it was going to be, but that it's
Peacemaker
just
season 2.
Superman 2.
Peacemaker season 2.
Isn't that done?
That's done already.
But
So he's saying like besides like these two, besides Superman and besides Peacemaker season
Peacemaker season 3.
2. That'll be fun. Clayface, body horror thriller, found his director.
Still can't get down with that or Sergeant Rock.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah, those are
kinda
two.
like
Sergeant
weird.
Rock could work, but at the same time, I feel like it's going to be very niche. Which,
I'm happy
when
DC's
we
going
get to
in
it.
these like niche directions, though. To kind of just like expand and show that they're open to trying anything to get new people in or new like characters shown.
Yes and no, but like people like I think everyone's kind of in the phase of like we didn't ask for this right now, and that's really more like a Marvel thing, but I think it's kind of applicable to most superhero movies.
Yeah, I think DC's doing it in an interesting but weird way as well. Kind of like you're saying, where they're doing all these things that I think the best example is the dynamic duo movie that they're doing with like Jason Todd and Dick Grayson, where it's like, did anybody want that? No. Do we hate it? No. But it's like, do we need it? You know, and when you have all these things kind of vying for your time, especially when you're trying to set up a brand new universe, I feel like you're going to end up confusing things a little more for the more casual audience, because if that version of Nightwing or Red Hood or whatever they're going to end up being by the end of that don't show up, people are going to be like, well, what the heck? And I think that might lead to a little bit of like, I don't want to watch another DC thing because it was a waste of time for some people. Not saying for us.
I think it'll be worse. Even with your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Shout out to all the fans that are in the chat and on the podcast. But dude, there are legitimately people that are like, oh, they're telling Tom Holland's origin story. It's like, no. I'm like, well, there's tons of MCU stuff, and then I'm like, no. So it's not connected? I'm like, no. Is it an MCU show?
No.
But I know.
Yes?
Do you think that originally it was supposed to be like the actual origin, and that's what they announced it as? So that's kind of been in the back of everyone's mind.
Yeah.
Do you think that had anything to do with it though? Because they did say that.
Not
James
for
Gunn,
casuals, bro.
That's true. That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
Like my kids clicked on Disney Plus and they're just like, oh, Spider-Man, like it's just a show to watch, and then you watch it, and then like casuals come in and then you're just like, oh, this is MCU, it's on Disney Plus, like it must be an MCU show. Like we're still having to explain that to like our circle of friends and family. It's like, no, but then you get freaking tie-ins and stuff. I know that's not what this is about, but to that point, I think casual fans, who are the fans that you probably want to attract to these shows, casuals make money, casuals bring viewers, hardcores will always be there, and a lot of companies just kind of pencil them in as kind of the floor of what you're going to get. But with that dynamic duo, that's the type of show where, like, especially the timing, is it going to be before Brave and the Bold? Is it going to be after? Then you get the same thing of freaking James Gunn being like, we'll consider if we want to bring it over to the DCU, but it probably doesn't make sense from a narrative standpoint. And it's like, bro, why are you saying this? Because we're going to get is Reeves Batman in the DCU for the next 4 years. It's just, I don't know.
That's what I was going to bring up, is that he did say what you said about still toying with if it is or isn't. And I don't think it should be, just because obviously story constraints, but
he's, for every good debunking he does kind of spew some garbage of just like, you find out, and it's just like, why should it happen? It's I don't know. I don't love that, but
I will say the best part that did come out of it, I think, is the Starfire and Jessica Cruz Green Lantern. Because again, more Green Lantern is never a bad thing. Starfire, I think, fan favorite character, so her getting her own series is kind of a given in some way. And superpowers, I think, can be kind of whatever they want it to be, and it be something cool for the greater DCU, especially since we know that these animated are probably, more than likely, going to tie in per James Gunn himself a while ago.
Yeah.
So I got one question for the both of you guys.
Okay.
We have My Adventures with Superman, and we just got My Adventures with Green Lantern. Who is the next DC character that you would like to get a animated My Adventures with show?
Robin.
Ooh, that's a good one. That would be really good. Which Robin though?
Depends on what they do with Brave and the Bold, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'd probably say like I think it's smart that you do early Green Lanterns with Guy, Hal, John, and then you get like a character that was introduced in the mid 2000s with Jessica. So there's a nice gap in between kind of the lore of those characters where it doesn't feel like you're repeating things or like crossing over a little too much. I still think Kyle would have been better, but it depends on Robin. I would say you go like origins of Robin, because I think you can do My Adventures of like before I met Batman and kind of like who he is in the streets, an orphan, that kind of stuff. And like, I don't think many people are too familiar with that, but I don't think movies would spend that much time on it.
I like that. Like it really flushes like early life and the theater days out. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think teen stuff works really well too.
Yeah. Hero, what about you?
My Adventures with Plastic Man.
Oh,
I think you can have a fun, zany, out there character, and I think Plastic Man would be a good one because I think
great
he's
for animation too.
Yeah, he can be, one of those. You can kind of pop him up anywhere, and he would still fit very well. If they decide to cross over into live action stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, Plastic Man.
I like that.
I do like that. What about you, SB?
I am going with someone that I've used on a characters we want in the DCU in the past before, and going Wally West.
Oh,
I think My Adventures with Wally, just even the title, My Adventures with Wally, not even the Flash, just Wally would be freaking cool and different for them, and be like, oh, who the heck is Wally? And be like, oh, he's a Flash. Okay. And I think it'll open a whole, like, kind of like what My Adventures with Superman did for Superman, and a lot of people getting into the character a lot more. I think it'll bring a whole bunch of people into Wally West Flash again. I had a little blank there, especially for those that now, by the time that show would come out, would be like 10 years post the Flash, and what the Flash TV show had kind of like done a little bit with Wally in there. Be a nice fresh take on it, and I think Flash animation superior than anything you can do in live action. So
especially if they don't give us that stupid slow-mo run. That'll be fine.
Oh, throw the
no, we don't need that. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, no, DC coming out with a lot of news. And again, if you aren't following us, make sure to follow us, because we'll make sure to cover the new stuff, the actual new stuff, tell you what's been announced, so that way you keep yourself educated and we enhance your experience, like we are about to do with an MCU redo of the Kingpin. Gentlemen, Kingpin sucks in the MCU. He sucks right now. I don't like the character, and I don't think a lot of other people don't like the character, and that's, then fine. You know why? Because every appearance, all two of them to be specific, he sucked in. What two appearances, you might ask, if you haven't been keeping up with the MCU for a little bit? Well, he appeared in Hawkeye towards the end, revealed to kind of be the big lurker in the shadows, had a big old Hawaiian shirt with a weird fedora straw hat thing, got shot in the face, and lived. Came back in Echo, was kind of, sort of, not really the main antagonist for Echo. And the reason we say that is because every time he talked to her, he was like, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill you. Did Echo do it? No. Did he kill her? No. By the end of it, she touched his chest. He was very confused. We were very confused. And then he said, I'm going to go be mayor. And now here we are, about a week away from Daredevil Born Again. The Kingpin still sucks. Hopefully, Daredevil does something to remedy that situation. Will it? Who knows? Stay tuned to find out. But gentlemen, we can definitely do something about it with our MCU redo. So kicking us off, Lou, how would you change Kingpin for the better?
Guys, they easily could have started him off right by not having him fight Kate Bishop. Period. I can forgive the wonderful people, the wonderful person whose name I don't know, nor do I want to look up just so it's not ingrained in my brain. But I know that they talked about it and they're like, we have a mystery character. And what's their outfit going to be like? Oh, this would be nice. A white suit with a Hawaiian shirt. And then Vincent D'Onofrio shows up and they're like, probably wasn't a good choice. We have no choice but to roll with it. So let's do it. The build up in Hawkeye was cool. And I think it was okay. You had an Avenger who's like, dude, you don't want to mess with this guy. Even though we're like, Hawkeye, why do you know about this? And he's like, I did some stuff, right? My Ronin days, got it. Echo, there's a bridge. Like, we have some connections and connectivity, and that's super cool. And we're getting gaps that are being filled in from like what happened post snap or during the snap. And then you get Kate Bishop's mom that's like involved with Kingpin, and like you had the ability to carry over that Netflix momentum at that point. All you had to do, in my opinion, and I think it would have set up Echo. I think it would have set up the new Daredevil Born Again series. You have Kingpin send in a smaller hero or villain, but show that he has control over the dark underside of superpowered villains. And you send someone else in. Let Hawkeye and Kate Bishop wreck some one-off character. No problem. But to have the boss show up, that is reserved for Spider-Man. That is reserved for Daredevil. For fans who have never really been introduced or seen, that first appearance didn't feel great. I think you have someone do the dirty work for him versus him showing up for that specific threat. Felt super weird. That's where I'd kick it off and start it first.
I like that. Yeah, I think that was the first big misstep for a lot of people, really. Not just us, because we did ask our Discord between Echo and Hawkeye, which do you feel more impacted the character in a negative way, and almost unanimously everybody said Hawkeye.
Hawkeye's what truly set the tone at first. That was the first time we saw him post Daredevil season 3. First interpretation that we have of the character with Disney in control, and they truly Disneyed it. I think it's just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it, and it's only feels weird to think that like the show comes out next week and Daredevil Born Again comes out next week, and it's been a year since we last saw Kingpin, and I'm excited for it just because of what we know of him from the past. But if they were truly going like the new rebooted Daredevil before they all kind of like switched the Born Again show, I'd be so mad that we'd be getting that Kingpin. Like, he talked about, you guys were telling earlier about how he was kill this, kill that. Didn't do anything with Maya to even really threaten her too much, which get family bonding a little bit. But dude was a menace in the Netflix series.
Bro, escalate doors that end you.
He was able to fight Daredevil and freaking Poindexter or Bullseye at the same time, and then struggles against Kate Bishop. I'm like,
it was a bad luck.
An arrow to the chest.
Nothing against the female superhero, but there's no business that she's
not too like super soldiers hero.
The experience, honestly.
Yeah, that too. Well, like you've seen Fist go up against people like Daredevil and Punisher that have killed, and it could have killed people, and like I don't know. It just felt weird. And the whole execution of it and just a stupid alley was just like that. That's the first look we got into it.
Yeah. Before we kind of move to the next piece, and Hero, I'm curious if kind of what maybe you would want to change if it does fall into Echo. But question for you guys: would you be fine if they just deleted Echo, period, and we never got that version of Kingpin in the MCU, even with the cool trailer that everyone was like, "He's back"?
If Echo as the show,
Echo is
her character.
Just delete Echo, delete her show. There was no Echo in Hawkeye. There's no connections to Kingpin or Fisk. That's it. It's just gone. Would you have felt fine if Kingpin showed up in Hawkeye without those connections and then didn't show up in Echo because the show didn't exist? So there's only one appearance before Born Again.
To me, yes. And I say this mainly because I think I'm one of the few people that really feels like Echo did just so much worse for him. Again, going back to how they just portrayed his character, where they knew they messed up with Hawkeye, but that was still salvageable because he was in it for such a short amount of time that it was kind of like, whatever, we can overlook it. And I think people were still very forgiving towards the MCU towards that time. Now you come around with Echo and they're like, hey, Netflix Kingpin is back. He's back. He's here. And then they don't deliver that at all.
TVMA, baby.
TVMA, first time. And then you don't get really much of anything that makes us really feel like, oh man, that's the Kingpin I've been missing. So yeah, if we could just delete Echo out of it, and again, no hate towards Echo as a character. I think it's just more in the context of the Kingpin. Yeah. Garbage bin.
Yeah. Okay. Captain Shadow Brando, Spider guy.
What'd I do?
Spider Pin Brando.
Oh, Spider Pin.
Spider Pin. Oh, I was trying to think of a name for
King Spider Pin Brando.
I thought about that, but I didn't
King Spider Brando Pin.
Brando Pin.
Yeah, Brando
Spider
Pin.
Brando Pin.
Yeah.
Anyways,
yeah.
What would you change?
Obviously, I would introduce him in a Spider-Man movie. No, I'm kidding. I probably would.
Honestly, well, no, bro. That's a part of it. I mean, we've deleted, but that's a part of it. Go for it.
Ideally, probably. This is my take on it. Obviously, I would definitely introduce him in like No Way Home, just because.
It's in a map.
Why not? It's in New York City.
Catches the brick.
Could I was like, they put Daredevil in there. Why not Fisk?
Ooh.
Oh.
Well, scandal mid podcast. Okay. That side profile. Okay.
But I wouldn't introduce them in No Way Home as well as Daredevil, like they did, and kind of mention, like, they could have just had a little tease at Daredevil and be like, oh, I've gone off against that guy before, or just some little like ad that he was running for New York City mayor. And that's probably all I would. Well, Hawkeye came out. No, yeah, Hawkeye came out after No Way Home. Yeah. So that would make even more sense to kind of like show him in Hawkeye a little more. But just that little subtle reference in No Way Home I would do. And in Hawkeye, I would then keep that same kind of like he was running the tracksuit, and I liked what he was doing during the blip period. I would keep that, but I think he definitely needed to be more of the Netflix edgy kind of like Daredevil or Kingpin that we got, and that would have set up more of like Spider-Man being aware of it into Spider-Man 5 for some connectivity there. You get the little breadcrumbs from like one movie to the show and then into true Spider-Man 5. And then that would have also had Spider-Man swinging through the Hawkeye Christmas tree scene. I don't care what anybody says. It took place during the same time. No Way Home and Hawkeye.
I was gonna say everybody's favorite theory during that time.
It probably should have happened, to be honest with you, because I think in hindsight, when you look at this, I mean, we just kind of talked about it in terms of, I think there are three things now when you look at the perspective of a fan. Two of them are more, again, in hindsight, looking back, and then one we can kind of go back and put ourselves in those shoes. But big picture, having a Lord of Crime as a Kingpin by the time we get to Born Again in next week, there are things in my mind that I think were just logical things that should have happened for Kingpin in the MCU. One being, he should have felt bigger in terms of his scale in the MCU than he did by season 3 finale.
Yeah.
He owned it. He owned all of it. But in the MCU, if you do go the Devil's Reign route, or you do start including like that Kingpin that is seizing control of New York City to rid the city of all this violence and crime and really putting the blame on masked vigilantes, that attack has to be cast wider than just Daredevil, in my opinion. And that's where the Spider-Man comes in. The hard part, though, is you had Spider-Man back in No Way Home, where it's like, cat's out of the bag. And then he goes through his whole spell and all that kind of junk, right? Fine. But before that, you should have had breadcrumbs, whether it's through Jameson or Matt Murdock. Somebody should have been dropping, hey, you don't know how much danger you're actually in. Now that everyone knows your identity, the Kingpin may be coming after you, and leave it at that. Let everyone forget his identity, but make that a part of reason why at that point May would have been, it's more than just, I don't need to see the freaking Rhino and Scorpion and all these cool things in purple. Let me know that the Kingpin is right around the corner and Peter is at risk. Pull that back. Fine. That would have been huge. I think another piece that you probably should have done is you could have name dropped him in and around Secret Invasion. You could have name dropped him in Brave New World. You could have name dropped him so many times throughout this to say like, hey, this big threat is here, and just built this kind of sub major team up type of villain in the MCU that we've kind of always gotten through the Infinity Saga. He could easily be a Civil War type antagonist for a team up of heroes. There's no reason in my mind, whatever you want to call it, that Kingpin could not have been a focal point of a grounded movie that leads you into or fits in between an Avengers level movie.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And I think that's kind of where I take my route for him. Where, to be honest, I keep him in Hawkeye because I do like the idea of him, and maybe they could have played it differently with Hawkeye where they leaned heavier into the Ronin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that the implications of that, how, yeah, that did rub Kingpin the wrong way. And I know some people might be like, get someone else to do it. And I think, Lou, you had said that, get an underling. But I think that could have been, they could have made that an opportunity for him to be like, I don't like that. I have to go deal with this.
One quick question to that point. Could it have been because Hawkeye is the level of an Avenger that someone like a Kingpin would have need to step in because that's the peak at this point of the hero?
And I was going to say that to me is where I would kind of lead it to, where at first he doesn't really know who Ronin is. And he's like, I have to find out because this person's he's doing too much damage for it to be just some person. And that would intrigue him. And I really do think that would intrigue him. And he would be like, I'm going to go do this. At the end of Hawkeye, you have him figure out that it was Clint. And maybe him and Kate still, and Clint, Kate, and Kingpin still have a final fight, but it's them escaping.
Yeah.
It's not like him limping away and being like, oh my God, I'm hurt. No, they put him down for 3 seconds. They dipped.
Yeah.
Because they know they need to get out of there.
Yeah.
And him having that information, I think, is what they could have then used to launch towards his campaign as mayor. and kind of put Hawkeye on blast, and him being like, this is what your heroes are doing.
Yep.
This is what your
That
heroes
would've been
did
great.
when they weren't being watched. This is why you need someone like me to come in and control this. Now, a big part of Devil's Reign as well is him kind of controlling supervillains. And I think even though Devil's Reign, good story, great story, I think this is where you kind of do your Dark Avengers.
Yeah.
You have him step in instead of Norman, because Norman's not here. You have him use his power to keep going further and further up, and you have him be Norman, and he assembles a Dark Avengers, and he, like you said, has his hand on everything. There's a version of Brave New World, similar things happen. At the end of it, President Ross is like, yeah, you know, even though I did use Leader to help me get into power, or just erase Leader altogether, I got in because of Kingpin. Kingpin controls everything.
Huge. That's the shadow villain piece of that, where he is that big shadow villain. And again, to that point, it makes sense, because him having a relationship with Ross, to me, wouldn't feel anywhere out of place.
No,
because Ross and the Sokovia Accords and Civil War and all those things happen, where that's literally a like-minded mindset of like, that's still in Ross, and that's an easy reason for him to go through. Hulk still being in Harlem, like, you're telling me that if he thinks that Kingpin could catch Banner, he wouldn't be interested in that and give him resources to be like,
absolutely,
look at what he did in Harlem. That is another reason of why heroes shouldn't be, you know what I mean? Like, and that could be, yeah, Ross's support for me should have been a shoo-in, no problem.
Yeah, and then you have a Dark Avengers versus Avengers showdown. You have your new Avengers, and you have your Dark Avengers, and you have just one person be like, hey, you guys deal with this. Kingpin is way over there. You could have it be Sam, where he's like, I have to go take him on alone.
Yeah.
And, you know, that be like the big showdown where, you know, Sam, yes, ultimately, that's when he ultimately gets defeated. But like, Sam went through it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think you would elevate everybody, because you get to see where they kind of go. You get to use these supervillains in a different way than people were maybe expecting. And you still get your Dark Avengers team without having to do with more than likely what they're going to be doing in Secret Wars, which is I'm not a fan of. But yeah, that's what I would do.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think we all have had really good points. Spider-Man, though, I'm curious to know kind of what would the relationship be between Spider-Man, Kingpin, and Daredevil then? And ultimately, like, who would really be that main adversary for a redone Kingpin in the end?
I think just like the comics, it would be Spider-Man at first, but he would call upon Daredevil. Is pretty much like, we did a video about this a while ago of the street level of Spider-Man 4 and 5 and what we'd want it to be. I pretty much would definitely like that, with Daredevil being involved in it, Kingpin being involved in it. But ultimately, I know it'll feel weird if like Spider-Man isn't the one to like defeat him in his own movie, but I think he would defeat him in a way that's like good enough for Spider-Man to defeat him, but like the threat is still there for Daredevil to just like kind of happen in the comics.
I love that, and this has been in the back of my mind, and I'm glad you said that, because in a perfect world, it's Kingpin that kills Spider-Man, and the symbiote bonds with Spider-Man because Kingpin killed him, and that's how he's brought back, and that's how it happens.
That cooks.
I think that'd be super cool.
But
the power would be weird, but yeah, I in some way that's how Spider-Man dies. Not versus Doom and whatever is great, but I'm just saying, like, there is a world where Kingpin really runs over all of these heroes in so many different ways. The information he has on them. I mean, I know we're not talking about Devil's Reign, but like in the beginning, when he has kind of his team of Thunderbolts that are going through, and I think it's like Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and they have their daughter, and like What a cool way to introduce Luke Cage or something like that into a freaking MCU where it's like, we're rounding up the heroes in New York, and my guy is like, yeah, I'm gonna whoop the Shocker, but everyone's like, oh dang, like who's this guy? I want to recruit him, and then you can start the Defenders or some crap like that. Like Kingpin could be the center of expanding the world of the MCU like crazy this way. And
Oh yeah.
I think we'd be talking in conversation of like who's been the best villain, Kingpin or Thanos.
I was gonna say, and he doesn't even. If they were to have gone that route, I don't necessarily think he would have needed to be a like 2-phase villain. He could have just been a 1-phase villain that starts from the beginning all the way to the end of that phase, and I think he would have felt amazing if they pulled it off properly. I think he could be 1 phase and be a recurring character in like a Daredevil show where he's in prison because of that, but he still has information that Matt needs, and he's still plotting ways to get out because that is what he would do. Ultimately, he would still run the criminal underground one way or the other because he knows how to do it more than anybody. But unfortunately, he's still trying to figure out what Echo did to him, as are we. So, will we ever find out? Probably not.
Episode 3, baby. Episode 3.
Who knows?
Vanessa's gonna ask him. What happened?
He's gonna be like, I don't know.
You know what's another Kingpin that I think a cool Kingpin storyline would be somewhat similar to the not similar per se, but kind of making him like researching different like science stuff with like how he was in Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah,
pretty cool and menacing. Besides him being like the entire size of my room right now.
and maybe that what they could have done with that to that point, kind of combining our theories here, is have him be the reason Thunderbolt Ross is Red Hulk.
Ooh. I did have a question earlier. I forgot to say it. How would you guys feel if the MCU'd truly hard and just made this Kingpin that power broker that we still don't know exactly who it is?
No.
Hell
throw the moniker of power broker in like a furnace, the biggest furnace you can find. Never touch power broker again.
No, burn that. However, would you guys be okay if he got adamantium, a piece of it, some of it, if he had it?
Like just like possession of it, or just like
he was in possession of adamantium in the stage that the MCU has presented it now. We don't know what can be done with it besides weapons and all that kind of crap that they tease.
I think that would be really cool, especially for the MCU to kind of like bring in different take on adamantium, and not different take, but I think that would be cool.
Bullseye.
Oh yeah,
give it to Bullseye,
dude. If Daredevil had to go up against adamantium, that'd be wild.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%, bro. I would even be fine if Kingpin, if you're gonna like justify why he's able to take as much damage as he is, to that point, Nate, I love it. Custom made adamantium lace suits.
That'd be wild.
I'll walk down the streets of Chicago, dog.
Especially a Kingpin that knows at some point, hey, I might have to go against Wakanda. 100% he would do that.
But why wouldn't he?
It just opens up a whole cool storyline for like the black market of adamantium too.
100%,
which it would happen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like obviously, vibranium is exactly what the Wakandans didn't want with vibranium. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Sidewinder walks into his office, kills him. Make everyone happy.
I thought you meant Sidewinder killing Kingpin for a second. I was like, "Well,
Oh,
that
no.
pisses me." I was like, "What do you mean?
No.
Make everyone happy?" I'm
and
infuriated.
then throw it on top. He said he just comes out and he's like, "I'm the power
Winding
broker."
down.
Dude, how you're telling me that people wouldn't pop off if Sidewinder were to show up in Kingpin's office, Bullseye's standing there, and he's like, "Did you get it?" And he's like, "No, we failed." And he's like, "Why did we fail?" Captain America showed up. No one can stop Captain America. He's like, "I could stop Captain America." Boom, dead. Bullseye kills all Sidewinder and the serpents that are there.
I'd be for it.
That'd be crazy.
I'd go nuts. Taking on Wakanda, bro.
Yeah, Kingpin versus Wakanda would be genuinely insane, but it would be so cool to see. Unfortunately, probably never going to happen.
Nope.
But Born Again definitely has some time, right? We know it's 2 seasons to hopefully redo some of these mistakes, fix them, make them better, give us something new to kind of chomp our teeth into Kingpin, and hopefully make him feel like Kingpin once again, because it's been a long time since we've gotten anything worth of substance from this version, a live action version of a Kingpin. So let's see what next week holds for us.
Want to see ruthless aggression.
Yeah, I'm hoping by this time next week we could just circle back to this conversation and be like, "Yep, he's back," and like, it's nothing to redo.
Yeah,
that would be best case.
I got no problem just my headcanon forgetting Hawkeye and Echo existed. No problem. If Brad Winterbomb comes out and he's like, "Forget it," I'm like, done.
I already did.
Yeah, I don't remember that, and I never knew. I never watched that.
I did like Hawkeye, but I would forget about Echo. I can't how I still can't get over it.
Man, Echo lied to us. Let's not think about it because it's just gonna ruin. Yeah, it's just gonna ruin our evening. Well, will someone embarrass him again in front of Vanessa? Probably, at some point. I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see. I was gonna say, give it a little bit.
Yeah,
the New York public will. Rejecting him. Ultimate embarrassment.
She's gonna whisper in his ear, "Show them who you are," Moana style. And it's just.
And then The Rock comes out, apocalypse form. What can I say except you're welcome? And then that's how we get the mutants in the MCU. You're welcome, everybody. You heard it first.
Hot theory number 999.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for 1,000 theory.
I will eat my foot if that happens.
Live.
Right. Live, yes. 100% live. Well, everybody, that's been all the time that we have for today's live stream. Thank you so much for joining us live, those that did, and for those of you that are watching it back, thank you so much. Let us know what you would change about Kingpin. How would you make him come into the MCU better than what he did? And are you excited for all the DC stuff that's coming out and for Daredevil Born Again? Remember, we're going to be having a bunch of watch parties this Thursday for Invincible and next Tuesday for Daredevil Born Again. But everybody, we have been your favorite trio of hosts. Lou to my right, Spider Brando below me, and myself, Hero Scroll. Everybody, once again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you choosing to spend your Wednesday evening with us. It means a lot. And we will see you next week on the start of a new season for Point3 Podcast. Until then, always remember to do the most important 3 things, as keep watching, keep reading, and keep nerding out. Everybody, have a great night, and we will see you next time.